Terra itself! Wakanda!
Hello Avengers and welcome to another battery guide video. Today we'll be covering Black Panther. I'm going to show you how to make a Black Panther that's more melee focused with battery while also showing you a ranged one. I will show you both versions. Now, a quick reminder, as always, battery damage is a combination of a positive and a negative status. The positive status are Vibranium, PIM, Plasma, and Cosmic. The negative ones are Shock, Cryo, Gamma, and Sonic. Now let's jump in on the build I did at the beginning of this video. This one is a melee focused. My melee piece is the Heavyweight Protection Claws, which has power attacks to deal cryo damage. Power attacks for Black Panther is basically the pounds. And I make sure that this piece has might stats as well. So those are the two essential things for this gear piece. The other perks are not as important, but the reduction cost of intrinsic attack is always a nice little perk to have as well. Then on the range slot we have the targeted buff gauntlets. On this one I have a positive status. So with this build what I'm doing is I am applying plasma on the enemy, the very first status I apply. In the process of applying that plasma I can trigger the target buff, which will boost my overall damage. Once the plasma is fully applied and the target buff is on as well, I can strike that enemy with my power pounce attack, that's cryo, and thus creating the battery damage. Now we don't always have to use our melee with our range attack. We can also combine it with Black Panther's heroics, which was one of the things I did at the beginning of this video, which is the King's Mercy. Once you reach this specific skill point in the skill tree, this King's Mercy will apply automatically Vibranium status on an enemy if your intrinsic bar is full. If at the moment that you want to do that, the bar is not full, you can activate your ult, and with the specific skill tree for the ult, you can make your intrinsic bar fill out completely, and then use the King's Mercy to place that Vibranium on the enemy. That's the only skill that applies status. All the other things, you just have to rotate them depending on what you're building, whether it's range or melee. Continuing talking about the build, my chest piece is nothing really important here in terms of perks. The key important thing here that this is giving me might stats and valor stats. Now valor stats are also important because if you're using the King's Mercy to produce Vibranium status, you have to make sure your heroic rating is high enough. For example, if your heroic rating is lower than 1000, like 800 or 900, it will not produce a status. I learned that the hard way while I was experimenting with the character, so the status effect would not go off because my King's Mercy was just super weak. Next up we have the Legacy of the Ancestor, which is the only exotic I'm using on this build. This is a great piece because it's giving me great amount of valor, again, which I said is important. It gives me a pretty good amount of resolve to help me with my defenses and overall ratings, and precision. While I'm not building for precision, it's still handy to have a decent amount because I can use my precision to apply status. Now this piece also has some pretty good perks. Mainly is the first one, Bass Chosen Amplification, which gives you a 20% increased damage and defense while Bass Chosen is active. This is your ultimate. So since I'm using my ultimate to recover my intrinsic bar so I can use King's Mercy, I will get also this increased damage thanks to this gear piece. You can get this exotic from priority missions. The other extra nice perks about this piece also is that it increases the duration of Bass Chosen by a couple of seconds. Then on my minor artifacts, I have Might Stones. One of them is this red ISO, which increases stun damage from signature attacks. Not really important perks for me here. They're literally just here to improve my might stats. Same for the second one here, although it has a nice little perk of increasing critical chance for power attacks, which is my pounds. So that's a nice perk, but it's only a 5%, it's not really gonna make much of a difference. But if you happen to get that one, then it's not bad at all to have. And while I didn't picture it here, I'm using the Northstar of Little Whale for my damage boost. As always, it's the best way to make an impact on bosses, but you can also use Tacticon to improve your overall status damage as well for battery.
Fight begins! My patience is short. Wakanda!
So that was a range build where instead of using our pounds, we're actually using constantly our daggers to create battery damage, as well as using our heroic of King's Mercy. My melee piece is power attacks with dealing plasma damage. In this one, for stats, I have it so that it gives me precision and intensity, which will be great for my overall range rating. And even though I didn't use the pounds for the boss fight itself, it's still handy to have the power attack so you can create battery the other way around for your range piece. But the main piece, of course, is the range one, which is target buff gauntlets. It's pretty similar to the one I was using in my first build. The only thing is that this time my gear is overall focused on precision stats. But once again, I have the target buff. Hitting enemies with a ranged critical attack, it can activate that damage buff. At the same time, I'm applying Sonic status with my Kapinga daggers. Now for Kapinga daggers or kinetic daggers, keep in mind that you need a specific skill in the mastery where you select that the last dagger in your combo of daggers is either a Kapinga or kinetic, so that it can then apply the status. So in this case, I'm making sure I have selected Kapinga as part of my combo. Next is my chest piece. Nothing really important here in terms of perks, but again, precision stats focus. I gotta make sure my gear is very focused on precision, because that's what I'm going to be using here, but also making sure to give Valor some love, because as I mentioned, King's Mercy needs Valor so that it can trigger the Vibranium status. Lastly, we're still keeping the Legacy of the Ancestors, which I already mentioned previously. A great help for your precision and Valor, and a great help for your ultimate. In terms of minor artifacts, I have a precision focused ISO, and because I mentioned how important Valor is as well, I have a Valor focused one. Now, you could change this Valor one for a precision piece if you happen to have other gear pieces in the other slots that help overall your Valor. The key thing is that you don't want to have your Valor too low, or otherwise it just won't work, the combination with the heroic of King's Mercy. And in terms of the champion points, I always recommend you go for the tactical boost table first. It improves your criticals, which also improve your overall DPS stats for both melee and range. It also improves your overall status damage. And if you're lacking on defense, then you can use the champion points to give you a little boost on the defense if you're a bit too low on that front. And that's it for showing you an idea of how to do Black Panther battery damage builds. Ultimately, it's your choice if you want to go for a more melee or range focus. And this is just an idea to give you how to play around with battery. You can create your very own builds. There's still other ways that you can create builds with him, like using the kinetic daggers instead. The kinetic daggers can be part of his melee combo, where when doing his heavy attacks you can suddenly make him jump and throw kinetic daggers. And that's another way to apply a bit of status, and you can combine that with the finishers that he has as well. I don't think it's ideal, but it's an alternative on something that you could try building for him. Hope this guide is helpful for you, and I'll be continuing to making more of these. I still have Miss Marvel and Hulk. I'm still working on building them, so stay tuned for those. See you next time, Avengers!